The dead centre of town.
Pretty minor change, really.
Right.
Just allowing maintenance work and repair work as a permitted activity, which seems entirely appropriate.
Yep.
Flatland recovery zone. So this is the bit of the residential red zone that's within the central city. It's a holding zone. It allows repair and maintenance, but it doesn't allow new subdivision and intensification and development activities during the interim. And as the second point mentions there will be a plan change in the future as part of the residential red zone program to decide the ultimate fate for that area of land.
Yep.
There's. I'm just going to mention the amendments, but.
Okay, no, you do that.
Yep. So there's just an amendment to bring the Central City high hazard overlay provisions in line with those that you'll hear about in terms of the natural hazards later.
Yep.
So that's all for that zone. So there was a question?
Just in terms of that red zone, so you're calling it the flat land recovery zone?
Yeah, we agreed to that.
And
We agreed to that last time because we weren't going to use the language of residential red zone because that is inappropriately creating an impression that it has been zoned and it hasn't been zoned.
That's fine. So basically, if you say you didn't accept the government's red zone offer and you wanted to rebuild or repair your house, you can still do that? Is what you're saying?
So for the Central City, it's my understanding that there are no, Sarah owns all properties within the Central City residential red zone, so there are no individual landowners remaining. But yeah, I will have a presentation to give you later on in terms of the rest of the city flatland recovery zone, so I can defer that question till then, or I'm happy to. Yeah.
Well, say Sarah wanted to build housing there, just basically.
There's no new buildings would be allowed. The only provisions would be sort of maintenance, alterations, or extensions of existing residential buildings. So,
and why would you allow that?
Well, I guess if there's people living there,
Let's deal with that when we get to the
property.
chapter that deals with the people that are still there.
Yep.
Yep. So all of the property that would be residential red zone or flatland recovery zone in the CBD, the area that we're looking at here, the Central City, that is now owned by Sarah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Cool.
And just, is there any control for the people that are adjacent to that area? Is there any sort of buffer or?
Yes, so one of the key policy direction is that, I guess given the type of land management activities that Sarah would be undertaking is different to what a normal residential situation would be like. It's sort of demolition activity, just making sure that any effects at the interface with sensitive areas such as the residential zone or open space, that those, if any effects would, like such as noise, would have to be considered through a consenting process.
Do they have to be notified? Is there a notification provision?
There may, I don't think there's an exemption to that, so that would go through the normal, deciding whether or not somebody is adversely affected.
Right.
All right. Hospital zone.
So the hospital zone reflects again largely what's in the CCRP. The provision, the one slight difference is in terms of Lyndhurst Hospital, which is on Billy Avenue, which being a fairly small scale hospital is simply provided for within the provisions that allow non-residential uses along Beeley Avenue, but the other larger hospitals have a specific hospital zone. There have been provisions largely amended to allow intensification of those hospital sites, but some amendments in terms of provisions relating to setbacks, particularly from sensitive areas. So there's, for example, increases in height limits, but as I mentioned, in some cases, increased setbacks. The one amendment to this is to allow the former Women's Hospital site to be used for the same permitted activities that are permitted in the Central City residential zone.
So, PD centre. Right, yep. Phil?
So the
Just joking.
current Christchurch Women's Hospital, you're including that under the heading Christchurch Hospital?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry?
Oh, it's just a matter of distinction, that's all. It's
Right.
included?
Yeah.
But I think it does highlight the issue around corrections facilities. I mean, the way that we've rewritten the plan, that could be used for a prison.
When we find Scott, sorry, we'll bring him in.
Yeah.
He may not be in today because the hearing's finished yesterday, and if that's the case, I'll bring him back next week.
Okay.
That's
Presumably
on
there'd be a
Wednesday.
set number of hours, not 24 hours.
Don't know, doesn't say. Yanni?
Saying rezone it back to residential.
Yeah.
Can you go back?
And
Yeah.
for the women's site, you're also saying that that would be have an underlying zone of residential?
That's right. Same as with the general hospital when we went through
Right.
it the other day.
So, but if someone wanted to build a big hospital there, or I'm just worried with that last sentence, you've got activity-specific standards shown as nil.
That's just as we had with the other hospital sites. It was basically an omission. Where we have an underlying zone, we need to say that if they want to use the hospital zone for residential, which is the underlying zone, then they just need to comply with permitted standards in the residential zone. So it's kind of a belts and braces way.
But if they wanted to build a new hospital, are they in say the women's site?
The
or
women's
health?
site. They can do that now.
They can, yes.
Yeah.
But they could do that now,
yes.
but they would have certain requirements within our existing district plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
So have we liberalised those requirements?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time looking at what they could build on that site going
Right.
forward, and we've gone up a bit in the height away from the edges. A lot of it reflects, we've looked at what they can do under the Central City residential around it. So we've looked at the height around it, the setbacks around it, and we've adjusted ours, so the new standards, slightly bigger setbacks away from the residential. We've thought about not having parking next to the housing, 24 access. So those standards reflect the context of where it is.
So worst case scenario,
Yeah.
what could go there would be something that would address the existing neighbourhood and wouldn't be sort of like seen as it being out of context compared to what was there previously.
I think it would be better. The standards closer to the interface with the residential got lower heights.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's improved.
Good. Excellent. Next one. Transport.
Madam Chair, I apologise, but Scott is away today, sick. So
God, well, it must have been a good day at the hearings panel.
no, it finished yesterday. And I apologise for interrupting here, but perhaps next
Probably
Wednesday
stress
we
leave.
still have a DPR meeting next Wednesday, 8 till 9. I could bring him back in that slot.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
So transport.
Yep.
Transport's pretty minor, just a slight date change for when temporary car parks are extended to, rather than the 18th of April, it's now 30th of April 2018. That's just to be consistent with what's already been approved in terms of temporary earthquake recovery activities. And the second bullet point is just a change of status from for non-compliance with minimum car parking dimensions from non-complying to restricted discretionary.
Sorry,
Otherwise, it's as per the operative plan.
Right.
So on a development, say like Wells Street, where we were looking to put in some car sharing car parks, what actually would happen there? It's in the Central City. I'm not sure which part of the zone it's in. It's near the Polytech.
Yep. So until 2018, the 30th of April 2018, a car park can be built
No, these are actually provision for, and it would be applicable in the east frame as well. So if large blocks of apartments want to literally have a car sharing scheme, as per what they have in Auckland. So you lease a car effectively. So the car is parked there, you don't own it, you just use it as and when you need to.
Okay, yeah, if it's associated with a residential activity, then it's a permitted activity.
It's permitted.
But if it is a standalone car park and they're offering it for people other than the people that live in the apartments, then it is considered a commercial car park, and it would either need a restricted discretionary consent until 2018 as a temporary activity, or if it's going to be permanent, it needs a discretionary consent.
Right, good. Utilities.
Utilities, there's provision to enable solar panels and wind turbines. And an amendment to... so there'll be exemptions from some of the standards relating to recession planes and things like that, just the same way as we do for chimneys and
So anybody building
television
in the central
aerials.
city can put solar panels on, no problem. They don't need to come and get special consent.
Within
Within their existing roof line.
Andrew's coming.
Andrew's coming. he can probably tell you exactly what those exemptions are. I might just move on to the amendments while we're waiting for Andrew, which is just to remove provisions relating to liquid fuel and gas from this section because it's actually already been dealt with in the hazardous substances section.
Okay, and so given that you can now put solar panels on a house at no capital cost whatsoever in Christchurch, I'm assuming we're trying to make this as easy as possible for people to do.
Yes, but I think Andrew will be the person who can answer that question. So
very happy to wait for him. But just on another likely development, given this is probably a 10-year plan, and the development of driverless vehicles that will accelerate quite markedly next year when Tesla does it for its existing cars, and the price drops quite dramatically. How do we cope with, over the next 10 years, the likely, very likely impact that we will have driverless vehicles?
That hasn't been considered at this stage. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure that would be a matter that we could through the Resource Management Act, through our district plan control, other than to the extent that we allow service stations, which could obviously have plug-in facilities at the service stations. I would imagine if David's still here that matters relating to what happens on the road are matters that aren't covered by our district plan and the Resource Management Act.
So, for example, there will be, within the next 10 years, very, very highly likely driverless vehicles, and many of them will be electric, and they will range in size. Obviously, the driver doesn't need to be there, and you don't need to own the vehicle either. So how are we thinking about the city in relation to those issues?
It depends what issues you're meeting. And in terms of how they operate on the transport network, that's outside the district plan. In terms of getting power to these sites, we've already got, council's fleet as an example, we've got 3 fully electric vehicles at the moment that are all powered by electricity. So we've been able to do that, retrofit our car park to fit that in. So
No, I'm thinking about, but I know we don't think this is going to happen, but it's going to happen faster than we think. And so we will have everything from very small one-person cars through to 2 persons, through to ones that, and they probably won't be electric, the big ones. But you won't need necessarily to own your vehicle, but there will be vehicles available if you need them. Have we thought about how the city might accommodate that quite dramatic change in vehicle use? I mean,
It's not about whether they've got drivers in them or not.
Well, they probably won't have drivers. If you have to drive the vehicle, you have to park it somewhere. and you tend to have to own the vehicle as well, so that we look at a car as an ownership commodity. My hunch is, well, actually, the research that's been done suggests that as of July next year, when Tesla put driverless capability into all their cars, and suddenly there's 50,000 of them on the roads, not ours, but their price will drop such that they will be on ours, how we actually deal with that a driverless vehicle can take you somewhere, but you don't need to own that vehicle.
But ownership or not, the plan deals with parking matters, it deals with the size of turning circles, with parking areas, everything related to cars, whether they are driverless or not, there are standards for in the plan. Whether the number increases, again, that's an issue to do with road size and where the roads go and what have you, and that's not dealt with under the Resource Management Act. I'm not sure what it is that, if there are complete changes needed to the plan, that can be done through a plan change. But at this stage, the plan has in it everything that relates to cars and vehicles at the moment. I'm not sure what it is that you think we should be thinking.
I just wondered if you'd thought about how radically this will change in the next 10
Yeah,
years.
well, we have been having discussions with some electric car providers in recent months, and
Don't worry.
yeah, we are thinking about it.
But what I'm hearing is that the plan is enabling in that regard.
Yes,
So
I think it will be, yes.
Look, Paul
and
and
has
Pauline.
taken growth into consideration.
Just on that, it could, and this may be something you need to think about, but we have taxi stands which are there for the purpose of collecting people. So maybe it's if you've got driverless cars that anyone can hop into, maybe it's like a taxi type stand. Yeah.
Yeah. And the closer they
Or
are,
like a
the
bus
better.
stop.
So, I mean, Uber, for example, are coming here next month, and that will alter probably reasonably quickly the style of transport modes that we choose.
I'll speak. Pauline. Yep. Yep.
On utilities, and just forgive me if it's the wrong place, wrong time, but do we have provision for green recycling bins for food at cafes? Because what I'm hearing from cafe owners, and we did do this, I don't know what came of it, but a lot of cafe owners cannot recycle their food because there's no access to the bins or anywhere for the bins, or access down alleyways to get to bins. That was in the old city. So have we addressed that? So I think it's really important, because all this food is just getting thrown out.
Just trying to have a quick look through the commercial rules just to see what is provided for.
Two things. It's A, having provision for these bins, and B, having access from the main road to get these bins into the trucks.
We're just waiting to bring Mark back. This is a rule to do with the commercial part of the chapter, so Peter's trying to look up the rules. Yes, we'll come back to it.
Okay, we'll come back to it. Yanni?
Yeah, I mean, I know we raised this in the previous stage, but I'm just really mindful that in the central city, the competition for space is really, really critical to get the balance right. So utilities are important, but it seems to me when we're trying to make it more pedestrian friendly or cycle friendly, the placement of facilities is actually really critical to get right. So again, I use the example on Gloucester Street, Fitzgerald, where the kids are going to school crossing a busy road, and there's about that much footpath, and there's utility boxes, 3 utility things or 2 that are on that corner that just mean it's a really horrible place for anyone to use. So have we thought about having some specific standards for utilities in terms of location in light of the accessible transport plan and the kind of, increased focus on usability of the central city? And I know you're going to tell me there's a national environment standard and we don't have any control. I think there must be a way in which we can put some sort of assessment matters in here.
No. But I did send you a memo a couple of months ago after last time, setting out how we do that because it's our road or footpath, how we negotiate around the location of those cabinets. But that's really our only avenue so to speak, for addressing that issue.
Okay, well, we've got a really big agenda ahead of us, and we're due to break for morning tea at 10:30. We'd expected to be finished the Central City chapter, and we've still got a long way to go. Was there anything in that memo that doesn't cover what you want to raise now?
I mean, I don't want to just accept that we have to accept the status quo, so I want to find a way to actually address this going forward.
But you just said that it was covered by a national environmental standard.
Well, it is to a degree, but maybe then what we need to do is be asking for some changes in the context of what we're doing. I can't see the sense in rebuilding the central city and allowing utilities unfettered access to go wherever they like. Like, it's just bizarre. If we can't do it through the district plan, and we just have to do it through the NES, it seems that we're just going to end up in a really bad situation.
Yeah, in terms of where they go, there are rules that require where storage and service areas shall be.
Oh, sorry, this is in response to the green bins question. This is in response to Pauline Potter's question that Peter was just replying to, and we'll get back to your question. Yeah.
For the meeting on
Right.
when we approve it.
Okay. So in response to your question?
So that's to the rear of the principal building on the site. So that's where they have to go. That's the Central City business zone, and I suspect
It's
there's
for the
something
green
similar.
bins.
So those green bins would have to go.
Trucks in to pick them up. That was always another issue.
In terms of access, there's a point to which rules, the extent to which, how far rules go, because if waste storage areas are to the rear, then inevitably there's a need for access for practical reasons to get to the bins. So council's not proposing, rules aren't being put forward to prescribe that access has to be achieved to that outdoor storage area, because it's there's a level to which prescriptions are necessary in my view, but welcome discussion on that.
And they bring the bins out to the road where there is access for them to be emptied.
As long as they can get them out there. Because
Yeah.
I know in the past they couldn't. There was no. Yeah, that's what.
Right.
Okay, so next. Yep.
So general rules, again, very similar to, so these are the things like, you'll get a taste for it as we go through it. In this case, the first bullet point is about temporary construction buildings, and the change there is that we've removed size limits. Outside the central city there is a maximum size of builders' huts and things like that you can have. The second relates to sale of alcohol, and those provisions have now been brought in line with the local alcohol policy and the CCRP noise and entertainment provisions. There is a new provision which requires that where noise standards are exceeded by more than 10 dBA, then that's a non-complying activity. Noise standards are now included relating to temporary activities and to ventilation systems. Indoor noise standards, so this is, there's an existing provision that requires a certain reduction in noise, and an alternative provision has been introduced which actually allows people to achieve a specific standard within the room, for example, within the bedroom, which may not actually require that level of noise reduction because of the situation that building is in. If it's in the back of a building, for example, there may not be much traffic noise. So it's just an alternative mechanism for achieving suitable noise environment inside buildings. It's been introduced.
Yep. Next one.
So change, pretty minor thing, although of interest, considering an early question, the noise category 2 boundary has been moved to the centre of Oxford Terrace rather than just applying on the private properties, so that the noise standards that apply to outdoor dining, for example, associated with those premises are exactly the same. There's been, in terms of signs, simplified calculation for the area of signs as a total maximum area of signs based on building length rather than road boundary, and there's no longer controls on that number of signs or maximum area of individual signs. It's all dealt with as a maximum. There's also an additional provision for three-dimensional lettering on a building, for building or business identification signs. Otherwise, no other significant changes in terms of the other general rules relating to outdoor lighting and glare, scheduled activities, water body setbacks, aircraft protection, public safety and emergency services provisions.
Yanni.
So basically, under the second bullet point, third, number of signs of maximum area per individual sign no longer controlled. So we're making it more permissive for people to have bigger signs?
I don't know. The change, as I understand it, is that instead of saying, okay, you can only have, every individual sign can only be so big, and you're allowed this number of signs, what it's now saying is there's actually a maximum for your building, and it's based on your building, and you can determine how you achieve that maximum in terms of one big sign, lots of little signs.
So what's the kind of ratio of how much building face you have versus how much signage you can have?
Ivan's probably in a better place to answer that.
Well, whatever the operative plan says, because we haven't actually changed it. But the actual details, I'd have to look at the provisions in more detail. But the main principle around this is trying to improve the design. So what the provisions, the new provision of importance here is that the signs are related to the building. So we're trying to prevent the signs protruding above the height of the parapet, and we're trying to prevent signs from covering architectural features and windows. So they're the new design controls. The dimensions in terms of area, I mean, they're in there, but I just haven't had time to memorise them. But they're the same as the operative plan. So what the plan is trying to do now is improve the relationship between in the central city between the signs and the building. So we don't get signs protruding above the parapet, and we don't get signs covering windows or other architectural features. That's the key change to the central city signage provisions.
And in terms of the freestanding billboards, are we reducing the...
Not reducing the size.
So, I just, the big jockey ad that goes on the side of that building.
Yes.
That's not, does that count as part of that building, or is that it gets a separate consent for a separate sign?
That will probably need be a separate sign. The free billboards are separate from signs on buildings.
Right. Okay, so do we address billboards through this?
Yes.
And are we doing anything more restrictive?
No, I wouldn't think they're more restrictive other than what I've actually outlined. If you're putting a billboard close to a building, then there will be assessment matters which look at the relationship between that building and the billboard.
Again, I just signalled that I think we need to be really worried about the over-commercialisation of space within the central city from a visual pollution point of view. If you go over the bridges, Sydenham, Morehouse, or Colombo Moorhouse, you see these big signs that block views of the Port Hills, block existing businesses, and I just can't see why we would be more permissive. I think we've actually had far too many of them be put up, and the consenting process doesn't seem to stop them from ever going up. In fact, what we're finding is a lot of them actually don't even have consents. But I just think we need to think a bit more carefully about how we assess whether they should be allowed or not.
Is that correct?
Some of them don't.
If they comply to the area and the number, then they won't need a consent. But where they do, those sorts of matters are taken into account. So we're all aware of those particular examples that Councillor Hanson mentioned, and they are part of the assessment matters, which if they trigger a consent, they will take into account. Similarly, around the central city, the key area is around the Avon precinct, and ensuring that that area is treated as a sensitive public open space. And we've got comments from the Minister, an initial feedback on that particular issue, because the initial proposal that went as a draft to Sarah concerning, for example, flashing and illuminating signs, we thought we'd try and make them more permissive to brighten up the central city at night. The feedback we got was no, that there should still be a restricted discretionary activity as they are at the moment, and particularly around and with particular reference to the Avon River precinct, which is and other sensitive public open spaces. No.
Light and energy in the night, and like have
No,
a nice lit city. They wanted more rules.
They were very nervous about flashing lights and whether or not the city should be a Las Vegas or not.
Your flashing lights I can get, but uplighting and surely that's all right.
No, even illuminated signs I think are quite warm.
Yes.
Illuminated signs are fine, but flashing lights I can kind of get.
Yes.
That can be very distracting and.
Yep. So those illuminated lights and flashing lights.
They want more rules.
Yeah, no, it is surprising.
No, it's not more rules, Councillor Buck.
The
No, it's
existing
basically
rules.
the status quo, as in the city plan at the moment.
But anyway,
On the subject of lighting, changing the subject, on the subject of lighting, nothing in here makes it
Difficult or more restrictive for us to do uplighting.
this is around signs. I really seriously.
There's lighting. There's lighting.
Illuminated.
Oh, lighting. No, I'm talking about signs.
I know, but
yeah.
it was the issue of lighting was there as well.
Yes.
So is there anything that makes it harder for us to do? Uplighting, lights that change colour?
This is about signs.
No. Well, the general rules also includes outdoor lighting and glare rules, and there's nothing that's been changed from what's in the operative plan in terms of restricting uplighting or monument lighting.
Or interesting things that change colour?
Those would be under
Trees,
the
fountains, all sorts of
Those
things.
would be under the signage rules. And there's nothing under the outdoor lighting and glare rules that would restrict upward lighting. It's only if it's directed at a building or if it's directed at the road and has a potential to distract drivers.
Okay, it's 20 to 11, so I'm going to propose that we break now. So I need somebody. We're going to break for morning tea. And we'll come back at 11 o'clock, but I need somebody to take over the chair of the meeting. So would somebody like to self-nominate so that we can pass a resolution? Who would like to chair the meeting? Vicky's going to be away.
I've got to be in Eddington at 12 o'clock.
So she's going to have to leave by 11:30. So.
How are we going for numbers? So I know a number of people actually
No, but we're going to adjourn the meeting at 12 o'clock and I'll come back for that and we'll be adjourned till 1 o'clock. So we'll come back at 1 o'clock after that. So
I'll be back at 1.
yeah, I'll be back at 1 too. So, well, I nominate Andrew Turner to chair the meeting in my absence when we come back from morning tea. Do I have a seconder for that proposition? Yes. Vicky Buck. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So we stand adjourned till 11 o'clock. Andrew will take the chair and then we'll adjourn the meeting at 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock. All right?